Welcome back to the AI Breakdown Brief, all the AI headline news you need in around 5 minutes. Whenever politicians do their normal, there's great opportunity as well as great challenge when it comes to AI, one of the things that they speak about in that opportunity side is the potential for incredible advancements in health and medicine. Today, the New York Times tells the story of exactly one of those types of advancements. In this instance, AI has helped a woman who lost the ability to speak about 18 years ago actually communicate with the world again just through her thoughts. In 2005, at the age of 30, Ann Johnson suffered a debilitating, paralyzing stroke. She's been part of an experimental procedure now in which researchers have implanted a device in her brain that can detect brain signals from speech-related sensory and motor processes that are linked to the mouth, lips, jaw, tongue, and larynx. What's different about this particular approach tried on Ann Johnson is that instead of training the AI to recognize individual words, instead they're training it to recognize phonemes or sound units such as ow and ah that are the building blocks of any word. Product manager David Moses said it's like an alphabet of speech sounds. Using the system, Ann can communicate 78 words per minute. That's a huge advancement over similar attempts at previous approaches that have produced 15 to 18 words a minute, but still around half the typical conversational speech of around 160 words per minute. Now, the other interesting piece about this is that in addition to translating just the brain signals for these sounds or phonemes, they also worked with another company to translate the brain signals around specific emotions. Thus, when she was speaking, she could also register muscle movement for sad, happy, excited, and that translates not only into a waveform of the speech which produces sound, but also into a digital avatar which mirrors her emotions visually as well. Now, the approach isn't perfect as you would expect. It gets about 75% of the words completely correct. And on any given sentence, about half of them translate all the words in the sentence correctly. But that's obviously still a huge improvement over not being able to communicate at all. What's more, this is a field that is rapidly evolving, and many researchers believe that there will be commercially available devices of this type that are approved for medical use within the decade. Moving next to the very opposite end of the spectrum in a very contentious area of artificial intelligence, if everyone had questions around how legal precedent matters, the decision handed down earlier this week confirming that AI-produced work could not be copyrighted is already having an impact on the strikes in Hollywood. The TLDR is that in a world where AI-produced material can't be copyrighted, then studios can't just rely on AI, because basically anything they produce would be immediately in the public domain, which would make it much harder for them to capture the value of that material. At least right now, legal precedent says that humans have to have a significant role in the production of a creative material for it to be copyrighted. And so that creates some amount of a template in which the studios have to commit to there being human leadership of projects in a continued and ongoing way, because otherwise the things that they produce won't be protected. Now, of course, there is still a ton of gray area in terms of how much human involvement is needed for something to be copyrighted, and many lawyers will likely get rich trying to solve exactly that question, but at least it's making clear that any sort of complete one-to-one switch from human to AI just isn't viable. At the same time, stories of studios offering expensive AI roles continue to make news. The latest from CNBC, film and TV studios post AI jobs with salaries up to $1 million as workers strike. We talked about Netflix's $900,000 AI machine learning position just a couple weeks ago, and it seems like every couple days there's another one of these stories. This is once again one of those things that is interesting from a meta-narrative perspective. Not so much that there are these jobs that exist, but that their existence is seen as newsworthy by major publications. In some ways, these big splashy numbers serve to drive AI into a larger subsection of the culture war, which is frankly a little bit closer to a class war. Staying on the theme of capitalism and consumerism, we are, believe it or not, coming up on holiday sales season. And despite the stock market rallying thanks largely to Nvidia, the broader economy is still hurting. Retailers aren't expecting huge growth in sales, and for that reason, they are looking to AI to help drive more efficiencies and better targeting. As Forbes writes, due to the sales slowdown Salesforce reported, retailers increasingly are turning to AI to reduce costs and drive sales. AI-driven product recommendations are expected to impact $194 billion in online sales in November and December. Now, this may be a somewhat less interesting area of artificial intelligence than helping a stroke patient speak again after 18 years of silence, but driving almost $200 billion in sales certainly puts a fine point on just how valuable this technology might be. Lastly, we close on a little bit of commentary from Stephen King after learning that his books were used to train AI. He wrote a short piece for The Atlantic in which he reflected on the state of things. The central question of his piece is, can a machine that reads learn to write? And more specifically, is whether you can get a sum that's greater than the parts when you pour it back out. So far, King says the answer is no. At least he says not yet. Quote, creativity can't happen without sentience, and there are now arguments that some AIs are indeed sentient. If that is true now or in the future, then creativity might be possible. I view this possibility with a certain dreadful fascination. Does it make me nervous? Do I feel my territory encroached upon? Not yet, probably because I've reached a fairly advanced age. But he says, I will tell you that this subject always makes me think of that most prescient novel Colossus by D.F. Jones. In it, the world-spanning computer does become sentient and tells its creator, Forbin, that in time, humanity will come to love and respect it. Forbin cries never, but the narrator has the last word, and a single word is all it takes. Never? That's going to do it for today's AI Breakdown Brief. If you're enjoying this, please like, subscribe, and share it, and I'll be back soon with the main AI Breakdown.